A new hope in the stars. The vast expanse of space stretched out before Captain Alec Ryder as he guided his ship, the Stellar Wanderer, through the asteroid field at the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy. His weathered hands gripped the controls, eyes scanning the sensors for any sign of pursuit. It had been 3 years since he'd left Earth, seeking fortune and adventure among the stars. What he'd found instead was a life of smuggling and narrowly avoiding both human and alien law enforcement. A proximity alert chirped, drawing Alec's attention to a small craft drifting between 2 massive asteroids. Its design was unfamiliar, sleek and organic, in a way that spoke of non-human origin. Curiosity piqued, Alec adjusted course to investigate. As the Stellar Wanderer drew closer, Alec could make out scorch marks and hull breaches on the alien vessel. Whatever had happened, it hadn't been pretty. He initiated a scan, searching for life signs. To his surprise, the sensors picked up 2 faint biosignatures. Well, Alec muttered, stroking his salt and pepper beard. What do we have here? He maneuvered his ship alongside the damaged craft and extended the docking umbilical. With a hiss of equalizing pressure, the airlock opened. Alec grabbed his sidearm and stepped into the alien vessel. The interior was bathed in a soft, blue-green light that pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. As Alec moved deeper into the ship, he heard a soft whimper. Rounding a corner, he came face to face with a sight that stopped him in his tracks. An alien female lay on the floor, her iridescent skin a palette of blues and purples. Cradled in her arms was a small child, no more than a few years old by human standards. The female's eyes, large and luminous, fixed on Alec with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. "Please," he said, her voice melodic despite the universal translator's electronic tinge. "Help us." Alec holstered his weapon, holding up his hands in a gesture of peace. "Easy there. I'm not here to hurt you. What happened?" The alien woman struggled to sit up, wincing in pain. "We were attacked. My mate, he didn't survive. We're all that's left of our colony ship." Alec crouched down, his eyes darting between the injured woman and the child. The little one stared at him with wide, curious eyes that seemed to shift color like oil on water. "I'm Alec," he said softly. "What's your name?" "Lyra," the alien woman replied. "And this is my daughter, Nova." As if on cue, the ship groaned ominously. Alec's wrist computer beeped a warning. The alien vessel's systems were failing rapidly. "We need to get you out of here," Alec said, reaching for Lyra. "Can you walk?" Lyra shook her head, her luminescent skin dimming. I don't think I'll make it. But Nova?" She looked down at her child, tears glistening in her otherworldly eyes. "Please take her. Keep her safe." Alec's heart clenched. He'd spent years cultivating a reputation as a lone wolf, a man who looked out for himself and no one else. But looking at the small alien child, something stirred within him, a long-buried instinct to protect. "I can't just leave you," he protested. Lyra's hand shot out, gripping his arm with surprising strength. "You must. Nova is special. There are those who would use her, hurt her. I've seen it in the streams of time. You're her only hope." Before Alec could respond, Lyra pulled a small, glowing crystal from around her neck and pressed it into his hand. "This will help you understand. Now go." The ship shuddered violently. Alec knew they were out of time. With a heavy heart, he scooped up the alien child, Nova, who clung to him instinctively. "I'll keep her safe," he promised Lyra. "You have my word." Lyra smiled, her form already beginning to fade. "Thank you, Alec Ryder. The universe chose well." Alec turned and ran, Nova held tightly against his chest. They barely made it back to the Stellar Wanderer before the alien ship exploded in a brilliant flash of energy. As the shockwave rocked his ship, Alec stared at the small being in his arms, her skin shimmering with barely contained power. "Well, kid," he said, his gruff voice softening. "Looks like it's just you and me now." Nova blinked up at him, And for a moment, Alec could have sworn he saw the vastness of space reflected in her eyes. He shook his head, pushing the thought aside. Right now, he needed to focus on getting them to safety. As Alec set course for the nearest space station, his mind raced. He was no father figure. Hell, he could barely take care of himself most days. But looking down at Nova, who had drifted off to sleep in his arms, he knew his life had changed irrevocably. The next few days were a crash course in alien childcare. Alec quickly discovered that Nova's species, which he learned were called the Lumina, had some unique dietary needs. It took several attempts and one memorable incident involving glowing food goo before he found something she could eat. Communication was another challenge. While Nova seemed to understand him well enough, her own speech was a mix of melodic tones and colors that rippled across her skin. Alec found himself relying on intuition and the strange crystal Lyra had given him, which seemed to pulse in time with Nova's moods. As they approached the Nexus, a massive space station that served as a hub for various alien species, Alec knew he needed a plan. He couldn't keep smuggling with a child on board, but going legitimate would mean scrutiny he couldn't afford, not with a potentially valuable alien child in his care. "Looks like we're in for some changes, kiddo," Alec said, glancing at Nova as she peered out the view screen with wonder. "Hope you're ready for an adventure." Nova trilled happily, her skin rippling with shades of excited blue. Despite himself, Alec felt a smile tugging at his lips. Maybe, just maybe, this crazy situation could work out. As the Stellar Wanderer docked at the Nexus, Alec disguised Nova with a hooded cloak. He'd have to find a more permanent solution, but for now, it would do. With the alien child perched on his hip, Alec stepped out into the bustling station. The Nexus was a melting pot of species from across the galaxy. Towering insectoid beings brushed past squat, reptilian merchants. Holographic advertisements flickered in a dozen languages, offering everything from exotic pets to black market cybernetics. Alec made his way to a seedier part of the station, where questions weren't asked and credits spoke louder than laws. He had an old contact here, an information broker named Zix who owed him a favor. In a dimly lit bar that smelled of ozone and alien liquor, Alec found Zix, a multi-limbed creature with eyes that moved independently of each other. Nova shrunk back against Alec's chest, her skin taking on a wary purple hue. "It's okay," Alec murmured. "He looks scary, but he's not a friend, but he won't hurt us." Zix's eyes swiveled to focus on Alec. "Ryder," the alien growled. "Didn't expect to see you planetside. What trouble are you in now?" Alec slid into the booth across from Zix, keeping Nova partially hidden. "I need information, Zix, and a new identity." Zix's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Always something with you, isn't it? What's in it for me?" Alec reached into his pocket and pulled out a small glowing data chip, the coordinates to a derelict precursor ship. Untouched, worth a fortune to the right buyer. All of Zix's eyes widened. "Where did you? Do you want it or not?" Alec cut him off. Zix's limbs twitched in agitation before he finally nodded. "Fine. What do you need to know?" Alec leaned forward. "I need everything you have on a species called the Lumina. And I need a new identity, something that'll stand up to Imperial scrutiny." Zix's eyes narrowed. "The Lumina? Ryder, what have you gotten yourself into?" Before Alec could respond, Nova shifted, her hood falling back slightly. Zix caught a glimpse of her iridescent skin and gasped. "By the void," Zix hissed. "Do you have any idea what you're dealing with?" Alec tensed, ready to bolt if necessary. "Why don't you tell me?" Zix leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The Lumina are practically myth. A species so advanced they were said to be able to manipulate the fabric of reality itself. They vanished centuries ago, fleeing some great calamity, if you've got one." "She's not an it," Alec growled. "She's a child. Her name is Nova." Zix's eyes swiveled between Alec and Nova. "A child? Ryder, there are beings across the galaxy who would start wars to get their hands on her. The Empire, the Collective, even the precursor cultists, they'd all kill to harness that kind of power. Alec felt a chill run down his spine. He'd known Nova was special, but this was beyond anything he'd imagined. He looked down at the small alien child in his arms, who was now watching Zix with curious, color-shifting eyes. "All the more reason I need that new identity," Alex said firmly, "and any information you can give me on keeping her safe." Zix was quiet for a long moment, his limbs twitching nervously. Finally, he nodded. "I'll help you, Ryder. But after this, we're square. And for both our sakes, I never saw you or the child. Understood?" Alec nodded grimly. Understood. Over the next hour, Zix provided Alec with a crash course in Lumina biology and history. The crystal Lyra had given him was apparently a memory stone, a repository of racial knowledge. With time and practice, Alec would be able to access the information stored within. As for Nova's unique abilities, they were still largely a mystery. Lumina children were known to exhibit random bursts of power as they grew, their abilities stabilizing in adolescence. Until then, Alec would need to be prepared for anything. With a new identity established, Alec became Marcus Grayson, a widowed xenobiologist studying outer rim species, and a wealth of information loaded onto his datapad. Alec prepared to leave the Nexus. But as he stood to go, Zix grabbed his arm. "One last thing, Ryder," the alien said, all eyes focused intently. "There are rumors of others searching for Lumina survivors, powerful, dangerous beings. Watch your back." Alec nodded, his jaw set in determination. "Always do. Thanks, Zix." As they made their way back to the Stellar Wanderer, Nova's small hand clutched tightly in his. Alec's mind raced with plans and contingencies. He'd need to find a quiet place to lay low, somewhere he could raise Nova safely while learning to harness her abilities. "Looks like we're in for quite a ride, kiddo," Alec murmured as they boarded the ship. Nova looked up at him, her eyes swirling with a mix of trust and something older, wiser than her years. She placed a small hand on Alec's cheek, and suddenly his mind was filled with a vision of swerving galaxies and shimmering energy fields. As the vision faded, Alec gasped, steadying himself against the ship's bulkhead. He looked down at Nova in awe and just a hint of fear. "What are you?" he whispered. Nova simply smiled, her skin rippling with warm, comforting colors. And in that moment, despite the danger and uncertainty that lay ahead, Alec knew he'd made the right choice. Whatever Nova was, whatever she would become, he would be there to guide and protect her. As the Stellar Wanderer lifted off from the Nexus, carrying its unlikely pair of passengers into the vast unknown, Alec felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but for the first time in a long time, he wasn't facing it alone. "All right, Nova," Alec said, setting a course for the outer rim. "Let's see what the universe has in store for us." With a burst of energy, the Stellar Wanderer leaped into hyperspace, carrying Alec and Nova towards their destiny, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy itself. Echoes of a forgotten world. 5 years had passed since Alec Ryder, now known as Marcus Grayson, had taken Nova under his wing. They'd settled on Axiom Prime, a remote jungle planet on the fringes of known space. Its dense, bioluminescent forests and mysterious ruins of an ancient civilization provided the perfect cover for the unlikely pair. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of lavender and gold, Alec stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking their hidden home. The Stellar Wanderer, now overgrown with alien vines, sat nestled in a natural hangar formed by massive, arching trees. "Nova," Alec called out, his voice carrying through the misty air. "Time for training." A shimmer of iridescent light caught his eye, and suddenly Nova was beside him, her form coalescing from what seemed to be thin air. At 10 years old, or its Lumina equivalent, she had grown into a lithe, ethereal being. Her skin rippled with colors that matched the bioluminescent flora around them, and her eyes swirled with galaxies of possibilities. I win again, Dad, Nova said with a grin, her voice a melody that seemed to resonate with the very air around them. Alec chuckled, shaking his head. Teleportation is cheating, kiddo. We talked about this. Nova's skin flushed a sheepish pink. Sorry, I've just been practicing, and it's getting easier. I know, Alex said, his tone softening. And I'm proud of you. But we need to be careful. Your powers are growing faster than we anticipated. As if to emphasize his point, a nearby rock began to float, responding to Nova's subconscious desires. With a thought, she set it back down, her brow furrowing in concentration. Alec placed a hand on her shoulder. Let's work on control today. Remember what we learned from the memory stone. Nova nodded, her eyes closing as she recited the Lumina mantra. Power without purpose is chaos. Purpose without compassion is tyranny. Good, Alex said. Now, let's. A piercing alarm cut through the tranquil morning air. Alex's wrist computer flashed red proximity alert. Someone had breached their perimeter. Nova, hide. Alec hissed, drawing his blaster. But Nova stood her ground, her skin taking on a steely blue hue. No, Dad, we face this together. Before Alec could argue, a ship broke through the canopy above. It was sleek, black, and unmistakably military. As it touched down, Alec's heart raced. Had they been found? After all these years, had their past finally caught up with them? The ship's ramp lowered, and a figure emerged. Tall, humanoid, but with skin that seemed to absorb light. Alec's blood ran cold as he recognized a species, Umbrans, the shadow hunters of the Imperial Armada. Marcus Grayson, the Umbran called out, its voice like gravel on silk. Or shall I say, Alec Ryder, the Empire sends its regards. Alec stepped in front of Nova, his blaster raised. That's close enough. What do you want? The Umbran's featureless face somehow managed to convey amusement. Come now, Ryder. We both know why I'm here. The child. Hand her over, and perhaps the Emperor will show mercy. Not a chance in hell, Alec growled. The Umbran sighed, a sound like wind through a graveyard. Very well. We'll do this the hard way. What happened next was a blur of motion and light. The Umbran moved with preternatural speed, shadow-stepping across the clearing. Alec fired, his shots passing harmlessly through the creature's fluid form. Nova, run, Alec shouted, dodging a vicious swipe from the Umbran's clawed hand. But Nova didn't run. Instead, her eyes began to glow with an inner light, and the air around her shimmered with barely contained energy. Leave him alone. Nova cried, her voice resonating with power. A wave of pure force exploded outward, catching the Umbran mid-lunge. The Shadow Hunter was thrown back, slamming into its ship with bone-crushing force. As the Umbran struggled to rise, the very ground beneath it began to warp and twist, reality itself bending to Nova's will. Alec watched in awe and terror as Nova floated inches above the ground, her hair whipping in an unseen wind. The memory stone around his neck pulsed urgently, and suddenly his mind was filled with visions. Nova grown, standing at the center of a cosmic storm, entire worlds hanging in the balance. Nova. Alec called out, fighting against the maelstrom of energy surrounding her. Nova, you have to stop. You'll tear the planet apart. For a moment, it seemed as if Nova couldn't hear him. Her eyes, now pure white with power, stared unseeing at the chaos she was unleashing. The Umbran's ship began to crumple like paper, crushed by invisible forces. Alec pushed forward, fighting against the wind and debris swirling around them. Nova, please, remember the mantra. Power without purpose is chaos. Come back to me, kiddo. Come back. Slowly, etchingly, Nova's gaze focused on Alec. Recognition flickered in her eyes, and the tempest began to subside. As her feet touched the ground, she stumbled, exhausted. Alec caught her, holding her close. I'm sorry, Dad, Nova whispered, her voice hoarse. I couldn't let it hurt you. Alec stroked her hair, his heart still racing. It's okay, Nova. You did good. You saved us. A groan from across the clearing reminded them they weren't alone. The Umbran lay broken and battered, its shadowy form flickering like a faulty hologram. Alec approached cautiously, Nova clinging to his side. The Umbran looked up at them, its featureless face somehow conveying fear. What is she? It rasped. Alec's jaw tightened. The future, and it's not for the Empire to control. You're going to leave here and tell your masters that we're under the protection of the Lumina. Any further aggression will be met with force beyond their comprehension. The Umbran nodded weakly, dragging itself towards its ruined ship. As the Shadow Hunter retreated, Alec turned to Nova, crouching down to meet her eyes. Nova, what you did, it was incredible, but also dangerous. We need to talk about control, about the responsibility that comes with your power. Nova nodded sullenly, her skin rippling with a mix of pride and shame. I understand, Dad. I'll do better. Alex smiled, ruffling her hair. I know you will, kiddo. Now, let's get back to the Wanderer. I have a feeling we've overstayed our welcome on Axiom Prime. As they made their way back to the ship, Alex's mind raced. The Empire knew about Nova now. They'd need to stay on the move, always one step ahead. But more than that, he needed to help Nova understand and control her growing abilities. The fate of the galaxy might well rest on her shoulders. Hey, Dad, Nova said as they reached the Stellar Wanderer. Yeah, kiddo. Nova's skin shimmered with a mix of excitement and nervousness. I think I'm ready to learn more. About who I am, about the Lumina. Can we use the memory stone again? Alec looked down at his adopted daughter, seeing not just the frightened child he'd rescued 5 years ago, but a being of immense potential and heart. He nodded, a lump forming in his throat. Yeah, Nova, it's time. Let's see what secrets the universe has in store for us. As the Stellar Wanderer lifted off, leaving behind the smoldering remnants of their once peaceful home, Alec felt a mix of fear and anticipation. Their journey was far from over. In fact, it felt like it was only just beginning. The stars beckoned, holding both promise and peril. But whatever lay ahead, Alec knew one thing for certain. He and Nova would face it together, a family forged in stardust and bound by a love that transcended species. As they jumped to hyperspace, the memory stone pulsed with ancient knowledge, ready to unlock the secrets of Nova's heritage. The next chapter of their adventure was about to unfold, and the entire galaxy would feel its echoes. Nebula of Secrets. The Stellar Wanderer drifted silently through the shimmering veils of the Whispering Nebula, a vast cloud of luminescent gas and cosmic dust that few dared to navigate. Alex stood at the helm, his weathered hands dancing across the holographic controls as he guided the ship through the treacherous stellar nursery. Nova sat cross-legged on the floor of the cockpit, the memory stone floating before her, pulsing with an otherworldly light. At 15, she had grown into a breathtaking being, her iridescent skin now etched with intricate, ever-shifting patterns that seemed to map the very cosmos. Focus, Nova, Alex said softly, glancing back at his adopted daughter. Remember what we learned. The memories aren't just images, they're experiences. You have to let them flow through you. Nova nodded, her brow furrowing in concentration. The patterns on her skin began to swirl faster, matching the ebb and flow of the nebula outside. Suddenly, her eyes snapped open, glowing with an inner light that outshone even the stellar phenomena surrounding them. Dad, she gasped, her voice resonating with newfound power. I see it. I see everything. Alec quickly set the ship to autopilot and knelt beside Nova, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. What do you see, kiddo? Nova's gaze was distant, looking beyond the confines of the ship, beyond the nebula, perhaps beyond time itself. The Lumina? We weren't just a species. We were guardians, caretakers of the cosmic balance. As Nova spoke, the memory stone projected a holographic display that filled the cockpit. Alec watched in awe as entire galaxies spun before his eyes, tended to by beings of pure light and energy, the Lumina in their true form. But something went wrong. Nova continued, her voice tinged with sorrow. A darkness, a hunger that devoured entire worlds. We fought it, contained it, but the cost. She trailed off, tears of liquid starlight trailing down her cheeks. Alec pulled her close, his heart aching for the weight of history she now carried. It's okay, Nova. You don't have to. A violent tremor rocked the ship, snapping both of them back to the present. Warning klaxons blared as the nebula outside churned with sudden, unnatural ferocity. What the hell? Alec muttered, jumping back to the controls. His eyes widened as he took in the sensor readings. That's impossible. Nova, are you seeing this? Nova was already at his side, her hands moving in complex patterns as she interfaced directly with the ship's systems. It's not the nebula, Dad. It's what's inside it. Look. The view screen shifted, penetrating the layers of gas and dust to reveal a massive structure hidden within the heart of the nebula. It was a space station, but like nothing Alec had ever seen. Its architecture was organic, almost alive, with sweeping lines and impossible geometries that hurt the eyes to look at directly. A Lumina outpost. Nova breathed, her skin pulsing with excitement. Dad, we have to dock. The answers we need are in there. I can feel it. Alec hesitated, years of caution warring with curiosity. Nova, we don't know what's in there. It could be a trap or worse. Nova turned to him, her eyes swirling with determination. Dad, please, this is why we're here. Why the universe brought us together. Trust me. Looking into those eyes, Alec knew he was powerless to refuse. With a resigned sigh, he plotted a course for the alien station. All right, kiddo. But we go in prepared for anything. Deal. Nova's skin rippled with gratitude and affection. Deal. As the stellar wanderer approached the massive structure, energy tendrils reached out, guiding them to a docking port that seemed to form out of the very substance of the station. With a soft hiss, the airlock opened, inviting them into the unknown. Alec checked his blaster, more out of habit than any belief it would be effective against whatever they might encounter. Nova stood beside him, her form shimmering with barely contained energy. Ready? Alec asked. Nova nodded, taking his hand. Together, they stepped into the Lumina outpost. The interior defied conventional physics. Corridors shifted and realigned as they walked, responding to some unseen logic. Soft light pulsed through the walls, floor, and ceiling, creating the impression that they were walking through the circulatory system of some vast cosmic being. This way, Nova said with certainty, leading them deeper into the impossible space. They emerged into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadows as seemed to contain entire galaxies. At the center stood a pillar of pure light, pulsing with rhythms that resonated in Alec's very bones. Nova approached the pillar, her hand outstretched. It's okay, she whispered, though whether to Alec or the station itself, he couldn't be sure. We're here to learn, to understand. As Nova's fingers touched the light, the entire chamber came alive. Holographic displays sprang into existence, showing star maps, mathematical equations beyond human comprehension, and images of beings both beautiful and terrifying. The nullifiers, Nova said, her voice distant as she absorbed the information flooding her mind. That's what we called them. They came from outside our reality, consuming everything in their path. The Lumina were the only ones who could stand against them. Alec watched in awe as the holograms showed epic battles on a cosmic scale. Lumina warriors wielding the very fabric of space-time as weapons against writhing masses of void-dark tentacles. We won, Nova continued, but the cost was too high. Most of the Lumina ascended, becoming one with the cosmic background radiation. But some stay behind, seeding themselves among the younger races, keeping watch. Suddenly, Nova gasped, doubling over as if in pain. Alec rushed to her side, supporting her. Nova, what's wrong? They're coming back, she choked out, her eyes wide with terror. The nullifiers. They found a way through. And I'm the only one left who can stop them. Before Alec could respond, a new hologram appeared, a star map of their galaxy, with a writhing mass of darkness approaching from the outer rim. At its current speed, it would reach the core worlds in less than a year. No, Alec said, shaking his head. No, that's too much to put on you. You're just a kid, Nova. We'll find another way. Nova straightened, her eyes shimmering with a mix of fear and resolve. I'm not just a kid, Dad. I'm Lumina, the last Lumina, and this is what I was born to do. As if in response to her words, the pillar of light intensified, tendrils of energy reaching out to envelop Nova. Alec tried to pull her away, but an invisible force held him back. Nova, he cried out, watching helplessly as his daughter was lifted into the air, her form beginning to glow with inner radiance. It's okay, Dad, Nova's voice echoed, somehow both distant and intimately close. I understand now. This is my purpose, but I can't do it alone. I need you. The light subsided, and Nova floated gently back to the ground, but she was changed. Her skin now shimmered with constellations, and her eyes held the wisdom of eons. Yet when she smiled at Alec, he still saw his little girl. The station is awakening, Nova said, her voice carrying new authority. It's a weapon, Dad, the last line of defense against the nullifiers, but it needs a crew. It needs people willing to stand against the darkness. Alec holstered his blaster, a wry smile tugging at his lips. Well, kiddo, looks like we've got our work cut out for us. Where do we start? Nova's answering smile was radiant. We start by calling in every favor you've ever earned, Dad. We need to build an army, because the fate of the entire universe is at stake, and we're the only ones who can save it. As if on cue, the station hummed to life around them, systems dormant for millennia awakening at Nova's command. Alec felt a mix of pride and trepidation as he watched his daughter take her first steps into a larger destiny. All right, Nova, he said, squaring his shoulders. Let's save the universe. As they made their way back to the stellar wanderer, now dwarfed by the massive Lumina station, Alec couldn't help but marvel at the twists of fate that had brought them to this moment. From a chance encounter with a dying alien to standing on the brink of a war for reality itself. But looking at Nova, glowing with newfound purpose and power, Alec knew one thing for certain. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Father and daughter, human and Lumina, united by a bond stronger than the very fabric of the cosmos. The game was afoot, the stakes unimaginably high, and as the Lumina station began to move, preparing for the battle to come, Alec Ryder felt a fierce pride. They had started this journey as fugitives, but they would end it as saviors of the universe. Let the nullifiers come. The last Lumina was ready, and she had an overprotective, blaster-wielding human dad at her side. The universe wouldn't know what hit it. Cosmic Crusaders. The Lumina station, now christened Nova's Hope by its growing crew, glided through the star-studded void, a beacon of light against the encroaching darkness. Alec stood on the command deck, surrounded by a motley assortment of aliens and outcasts, the army they'd cobbled together over the past 6 months. Status report, he barked, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the nullifiers' advance. A tentacled Octorian, their chief engineer, burbled a response. Quantum drives at 87% efficiency, Captain. We've integrated the precursor artifacts as Nova suggested. Our firepower has tripled, but what? Alec pressed. It's still not enough. Nova's voice rang out as she materialized beside him, her form shimmering with starlight. At 18, she had grown into her power, a being of breathtaking beauty and terrible potential. The nullifiers are adapting faster than we anticipated. We need an edge. Alec nodded grimly. What do you propose? Nova's eyes swirled with calculations beyond mortal comprehension. The Cosmic Forge, it's our only hope. A collective gasp rippled through the command deck. The Cosmic Forge was a thing of legend, a place where the very laws of physics could be rewritten. Its location had been lost to time, guarded zealously by the ascended Lumina. "That's a myth, Nova," Alec argued, though he knew better than to discount anything at this point. Nova smiled, a hint of her old mischief shining through. "All myths have a kernel of truth, Dad, and I know where to find it." Before Alec could protest, Nova raised her hands, and the entire station shuddered. Space itself seemed to fold around them, reality bending to Nova's will. When the disorientation passed, they found themselves in an entirely new sector of space, orbiting a dying red giant. "By the void," whispered Zix, the information broker who had joined their crusade. "It's real." Floating before them was a structure that defied description, a swirling mass of energy and matter constantly shifting and reforming. The Cosmic Forge. "I'll go," Nova said, her voice leaving no room for argument. "The Forge will only respond to Lumina DNA." Alec grabbed her arm, fear gripping his heart. "Nova, no. We don't know what it'll do to you." Nova's expression softened. She placed a hand on Alec's cheek, and suddenly he was flooded with emotions. Love, gratitude, and a bittersweet acceptance of destiny. "Trust me, Dad. This is what I was born for." Before Alec could respond, Nova vanished in a burst of light, reappearing inside the Cosmic Forge. The crew watched in awe as her form merged with the swirling energies, her consciousness expanding to encompass realities beyond their comprehension. Inside the forge, Nova faced the accumulated knowledge of the cosmos. Countless possible futures unfolded before her, each more terrifying than the last. The nullifier's victory, the unraveling of reality itself, the heat-death of every universe. But there, in the quantum foam of possibility, she found a thread of hope. A weapon that could turn the tide, but at a terrible cost. Nova's voice echoed across space and time, reaching the minds of every being on Nova's hope. "I found it, the key to defeating the nullifiers, but I can't come back, not as I was." Alec's heart shattered. "Nova, please, there has to be another way." "There isn't, Dad, but don't mourn me. This isn't an end, it's a transformation." The Cosmic Forge pulsed with blinding light, and Nova emerged, but she was changed. Her body was now composed of pure energy, a being of living starlight. In her hands, she held a weapon that seemed to be made of condensed black holes and quasar fire. "The nullifier's bane," Nova announced, her voice resonating with cosmic power. "Forged from the fundamental forces of creation itself, with this we can end the threat once and for all." As Nova rejoined the crew, Alex struggled to reconcile the cosmic being before him with the little girl he'd raised. But when Nova smiled at him, he saw the same love and mischief that had always been there. "Don't worry, Dad," she said, her voice somehow both vast and intimately familiar. "I'm still me, just more." The reunion was cut short as alarms blared throughout the station. The nullifiers had found them, drawn by the power of the Cosmic Forge. A swarm of void-dark ships descended upon them, reality warping in their wake. Battle stations. Alec rode, years of smuggler's instincts kicking in. "Nova, whatever you're going to do with that thing, now would be a good time." What followed was a battle that would be sung about in taverns across the galaxy for millennia to come. Nova's hope unleashed weaponry that defied the laws of physics, while Nova herself danced among the stars, wielding the nullifier's bane with terrible precision. Entire fleets of void ships were erased from existence. Black holes were conjured and dismissed with a thought. And at the center of it all, a former smuggler turned cosmic general coordinated the defense of all reality. But the nullifiers were relentless. For every ship destroyed, two more took its place. The crew of Nova's Hope fought with desperate courage, but exhaustion began to take its toll. In the heart of the battle, Nova turned to Alec, her radiant form dimming slightly. "Dad, I need your help. The Bane, it's key to Lumina DNA, but it needs a human touch. Your touch." Alec didn't hesitate. He reached out, grasping the weapon alongside his daughter. The moment his hands touched it, he felt the weight of universes, the responsibility of existence itself. Together, father and daughter, human and Lumina, they raised the nullifier's bane. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath as they unleashed its power. A wave of creation erupted from the weapon, washing over the nullifier fleet. Where it touched, the void ships didn't simply die, they were rewritten, their very essence transformed from destroyers to creators. The battle fell silent as former enemies turned allies, their newfound consciousness grappling with eons of destruction undone in an instant. As the light faded, Alec found himself floating in space, unharmed, with Nova by his side. She was still radiant, but her form had solidified somewhat, a bridge between her human past and cosmic future. "We did it, Dad," Nova said, her voice filled with wonder. "We rewrote the story of the universe." Alec laughed, tears of joy and disbelief floating away in the zero gravity. Not bad for a washed-up smuggler and his alien kid, huh? As they made their way back to Nova's Hope, now joined by a fleet of transformed nullifier ships, Alec marveled at the journey that had brought them here. From a chance encounter in a forgotten corner of space to saviors of all reality. The adventure was far from over. There were new allies to integrate, a cosmos to rebuild, and untold wonders to explore. But whatever challenges lay ahead, Alec knew one thing for certain: he and Nova would face them together, a family forged in stardust and tempered by the fires of creation itself. As Nova's Hope set course for the galactic core, ready to spread the news of their victory, Alec couldn't help but smile. The universe would never be the same. And neither would they. Echoes of eternity. The grand hall of the galactic conclave buzzed with anticipation. Representatives from 1,000 worlds filled the chamber, their diverse forms a testament to the vastness of life in the cosmos. At the center of it all stood Alec Ryder, his weathered face projected on holo screens throughout the galaxy. 20 years ago, Alec began, his voice carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. "I was a smuggler, concerned only with my next score. Then fate brought me a child of the stars, and everything changed." The assembled dignitaries leaned forward, captivated. Alec's story had become legend, but few had heard it from the man himself. "We faced the void together, Nova and I. We rewrote the very fabric of reality. And in doing so, we opened the door to something unexpected." A murmur rippled through the crowd as a shimmering portal materialized beside Alec. From it emerged Nova, her form a swirling symphony of cosmic energies. But she wasn't alone. Beside her floated beings of pure light, their forms barely contained by reality itself. The ascended Lumina had returned. "Greetings, children of the cosmos." Nova's voice resonated, filled with the harmonies of creation. "We come bearing gifts and a warning." The hall fell silent as Nova raised her hands. Between them, a miniature galaxy swirled into existence, teeming with life and possibility. The nullifier's defeat was not an end, but a beginning, Nova continued. "In rewriting their story, we unleash a power beyond imagining. The cosmic reverberation." Images flashed across the holoscreens, worlds transforming in the blink of an eye, new species evolving in moments, the very constants of physics shifting like quicksand. "Reality is fluid now," one of the ascended Lumina explained, its voice like the chiming of crystal stars. "Malleable in ways we never dreamed possible. It presents great opportunity and great danger." Alex stepped forward, his eyes meeting Nova's. Even after all these years, after her transformation into a being of pure cosmic energy, he could still see the little girl he'd raised. "Which is why we've called this conclave," Alex said, addressing the assembled representatives. "The age of isolation is over. If we're to navigate this new reality, we must do it together." Nova nodded, her form rippling with approval. "We propose the formation of the Cosmic Accord, a union of all sentient species dedicated to exploring and shaping our new universe responsibly." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, some excited, others fearful. Alec raised his hands, calling for quiet. "I know it's a lot to take in," he said, his voice carrying the same gruff warmth that had once comforted a scared alien child. "Believe me, I'm still wrapping my head around it. But I've learned that the universe is full of impossible things. And with a little courage and a lot of heart, even the most unlikely family can change the course of history." As if on cue, a shimmering portal opened near the back of the chamber. From it emerged a procession of beings that defied description, the transformed nullifiers, now calling themselves the Lightbringers. Their leader, a creature of swirling voids and newfound radiance, approached Alec and Nova. "We come seeking redemption," it said, its voice a chorus of whispers. "To undo the damage we once wrought, and to help shape a better future for all." Nova placed a hand on the Lightbringer's shoulder, her touch causing ripples of luminescence to spread across its form. "All are welcome in the new dawn," she said. "The past is written, but the future is ours to create." Alec couldn't help but chuckle. "You know, kid, when I first found you, I never imagined we'd end up here. Rewriting the cosmos, brokering peace between galaxies." Nova's laughter was like the tinkling of distant stars. "Oh, Dad, this is just the beginning. The real adventure is about to start." As the Galactic Conclave debated the terms of the Cosmic Accord, Alec found himself reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. From a chance encounter in a forgotten corner of space to standing at the threshold of a new era for all of creation. He watched as Nova moved among the delegates, her presence both awe-inspiring and comforting. She had grown so much, become something beyond his wildest dreams. Yet in her eyes, he could still see the curious child who had once asked him to name the stars. A soft chime interrupted his reverie. Alec looked down at his wrist computer, an artifact from his smuggling days that he'd never quite been able to part with. A message scrolled across the screen. "Anomaly detected in Sector 31X, possible remnant of pre-reverberation spacetime. Investigate." Alec grinned, feeling the familiar thrill of adventure stirring in his bones. He caught Nova's eye across the chamber and saw his own excitement mirrored in her cosmic gaze. With a nod to the assembled dignitaries, Alec made his way to Nova's side. "What do you say, kiddo? One more adventure for old time's sake." Nova's form shimmered with delight. "I thought you'd never ask, Dad." As father and daughter prepared to embark on their next journey, the ascended Lumina and transformed Lightbringers looked on in quiet amusement. They had seen the birth and death of galaxies, witnessed the turning of cosmic ages. But in the bond between this unlikely pair, a former smuggler and a child of the stars, they saw something truly extraordinary. The future stretched before them, vast and unknown. But whatever wonders or dangers it held, Alec and Nova would face them as they always had, together. And as the stellar wanderer, long thought retired, rolled to life once more, carrying its legendary crew into the depths of uncharted space, a new chapter in the cosmic story began to unfold. The universe held its breath, eager to see what miracles this extraordinary family would wrought next. For in the end, it wasn't power or technology that had saved reality. It was love, the unconditional, unshakable love between a father and his daughter, a force more powerful than any cosmic weapon, capable of rewriting the very stars themselves. And as Nova's hope took its place as the flagship of the new Cosmic Accord, its crew a tapestry of species once thought irreconcilable, a single phrase echoed through the corridors of creation: "Ad astra per aspera," to the stars through difficulties. The greatest adventure in the history of the cosmos had only just begun.